Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo Manifesto Editions. To those who are watching, or to anyone watching this for the first time, this is a live broadcast, literally created and broadcast live every time. And this is the kind of broadcast that is actually without any of the decorations, facilities, because apart from the device that I'm using, which is a telephone, smartphone, there is nothing to hold the phone onto, and I've lost the use of the tablets and the MacBook because the place I was existing in didn't have any furniture, and the laptop that I literally put on the lap kept falling off, and it fell so many times on the floor that its screen became dysfunctional. And I think that the estimate of the repair cost given to me by the Apple store in Stratford, Westfield in Stratford in Newham in East London, is fairly representative of the damage that the item suffered, which is about £600, 599, I think he said, the man. And then there are other costs, various external memory sticks, etc., that need to be paid for. Now, in the period that was May 2022, which is about 2 weeks after I left hospital, my first ever stay in hospital, about 6 weeks, I tried to recover the remaining laptops and the hardware, etc., that were in the flat that I left the hospital for. And that flat was the place where I supposedly had the address from the beginning of July 2016 up to the period in March 2022 when I had to go to hospital because of the frostbite, as the doctors found, that I had suffered in my hands. And I stayed there for 6 weeks. Now, because I never had been to hospital and I've never been really in contact with anyone in hospital after the absolutely cruel experience that I observed my mother go through in her last days in 2020. Sorry, was it 1900? No, 2020, 2000. No, year 2000, not 2020. I decided not to go to a hospital at all to see anyone. The conditions, the behavior, the attitude, the environment, the outlook in hospital that I saw were absolutely appalling, inappropriate, unhelpful, and the description got even worse. So I'll stop there. When I went to hospital, one of the things that I noticed was that the ward that I was eventually kind of housed in, which is where I spent most of the weeks, I think I spent about 4, 5, 6 weeks altogether. So the majority of the time I spent in that ward, and the toilet was shared. And every time I tried to use the toilet, I found that I had to clean a lot of it because other users had left the toilet unusable state, and completely unhygienic. And any attempt to tell the nursing staff in the ward that the toilet was unusable produced a hostile result and hostile look. One of the other things, of course, was the discharge process. Discharge from hospital necessarily entailed my getting in contact with the local council. And the local council is defined by the locality where my ordinary home was, which was Newham. That is the reason why I became a Newham resident, because I couldn't find a place in 2016 anywhere in Tower Hamlets, and I couldn't find any place anywhere else. So I found the one where I existed with extreme discomfort and losses, which I shall be updating on later, not in this particular edition. But so when the discharge process was begun, it entailed my getting into contact with the Newham Council. Remember, none of the communications that has referred to Newham social services, adult social care, etc., etc., none of these had been initiated by me ever, because all my active campaigning experience of decades convinced me, and I remain convinced, that employees in English local councils, whatever the council's name is, may be, are untrained, uneducated, and absolutely ignorant. And anyone who is coming across this particular series of broadcasts must understand that all my contacts with the councils are reluctant, absolutely reluctant, absolutely reluctant. Now, so the discharge process began, and it was all unreasonably done, and I was discharged without any notice on the 11th of May 2022, and I landed in a place, again, it's a part of the interim kind of location, in Essex on the 11th of May 2022. And that place was supposed to be run under the kind of, where do I begin? It was supposed to be run caringly. None of the aspects of the concept of care existed there. I found out within the 3 hours of my arrival there, because my entrance there was kind of accompanied by about 2 hours of conversation I had with a woman called Daphne at the kind of entrance door. And she told me everything that I think she thought I needed to hear, not everything that was true. And within the 3 hours, I found that she had been lying. So it goes on. So anyone who is coming across these broadcasts and sometimes coming across swearing, because I do have to swear because I had to give vent to the extreme, absolute extreme outrage that I feel at the badness of the attitude on the part of the personnel that are employed there. Now, one of the other things I found, and I found it after the stay, after I stayed there in the place in Essex about 6 weeks, And I found out after the most of the time had been spent that the local council was paying huge sums of money every day, allegedly under the banner of my care. I didn't know how much money they were spending. Now I had not seen that kind of money being spent in a month. The money that they were getting from the council every day for supposedly my care. Now when the private eye, current private eye, Rotten Boroughs, runs this piece about Roxana Fias, who is the executive elected mayor in her second term in Newham. It says on page 15 of the current issue, Tears for Fias. Choppy waters for London Borough of Newham's elected Mayor Roxana Fias. When it runs that story, which I have read before, but this doesn't come anywhere near telling the truth about what is happening. Because it doesn't talk about the people in Newham. It doesn't talk about the people whose name has been used and being used by Roxana Fias to spend hundreds of millions of pounds. And the hundreds of millions of pounds are being pocketed by crooks, organized care home businesses. And the care home businesses, the one that exists in Essex, where I was sent, is run by a thing called hc-1.co.uk, is a representative, typical representative sample of the crooks that are allowed to operate and pocket millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of pounds right across England. I'm not talking about Scotland, I'm not talking about Northern Ireland, I'm not talking about Wales or Cornwall, but I'm talking about just the England bit. Now, I am an exceptionally active individual, and I have been for decades. I have not come across anyone, absolutely no one of any background from anywhere, that matches the active state of being that I am and I have been. So it is revolting and it is unacceptable that I should have been given that experience that I'm still going through. Now I am in my tiny kind of spot as a so called home now. And I'll discuss the inadequacy of this in a later edition. Now, this is the part that I'm calling the princess kittens. The princess regent kittens are being. There are three of them. They're supposedly stray kittens in the kind of residential place that I was staying in from 23rd of November 2022 until the beginning of this month. And these kittens, about 3 months before that, they began to approach me. That is to say, they came at the door of the room that I was in. And they presented themselves like about 9, 10 p.m. until about 11. And I got the message. So I began to buy cat food for the first time after years of swearing and promising not to get attached to another cat because of the home situation. Housing is conceived in the minds of the all the people, including shelter the morons, as being just one human skeleton, nothing else. Now, I am the opposite. I carry the equivalent, intellectual equivalent of the Washington based library, the Oxford based library, the British Library in Euston in London. I have got so much documentary material, so much intellectual properties that a big house will not be enough to accommodate. Again, the housing situation is so extraordinarily exceptional in my case that it will take a whole lot of series. Now, these kittens, because I left the space, I told the one of the men that worked there, the place, that I would come in the evening at the time that I had been feeding them, and I'd feed the kittens and I would leave. Now, the word kittens needs a clarification. I call all kittens of all ages, all felines, otherwise, all cats or kittens, because the word kittens actually brings about the biggest hugging, embracing, loving attitude about them. Now, this is now 24th of August, and I have been prevented from going in there and feeding the babies. I call them the babies now. Why they have done that is again a mystery because they have not told me why they have done that. But it is, I think, the psychology of these sick people. It is a way of making me suffer. They think they're making me suffer, but what they're doing is making the kittens wonder what happened to the man that became our feeder. And it is absolutely horrific. Why would they do that? And why would Ruxana Fias cause these kittens to suffer? Because in the article on page 15 of the private lie, Tears for Fears under the Rotten Borough, these people don't mention the existence of any ordinary people, nothing to do with homelessness, nothing to do with the lack of care, nothing to do with the millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions of pounds that Newham Council spends in paying the crooks organized as care homes, etc., or residential home. Now, that home in the Prince Regent Lane is called the Joy Foundation. Now, in some of the previous early editions of this series, I have called them sick makingly, wrongly named Joy Foundation because it is. The people who are in control of that corruptly called Joy Foundation are all dystopian, very grim. Now, grim is the word that a so called self styled radical NUJ journalist, Aidan White, used when there was a so called supporters meeting for his outfit called Newham Voices. Now, Aidan and I go back some 4 decades because he was also involved in the thing called East End News in 1981 when I generously, kindly gave my support to the venture in good faith, which I found was wrongly based because they wanted to create a stunt within the NUJ bureaucracy. Now, I had been an NUJ member since 1976 when I got elected as publications editor of the Northeast Polytechnic Activist Monitor, which is abbreviated to NEPAM, NEPAM, Northeast Polytechnic Activist Monitor. Now, I have been a very, very, very prolific writer, author, creator, and designer, and photographer, and all the rest of it. There is no other human being, as I said, I have known who has combined these skills and these abilities and the willingness to actually give up so much of the leisure, so much of the time. And I have been doing this. And to what effect? Because all of the stuff that I keep creating gets stolen or get lost because of the attacks on my right to a proper home. Now, these baby kittens, the three ones, I have not seen them since I was forced to leave that place in the first week of August 2024. And the extent of Roxana Fiaz's stupidity, arrogance, etc., only glimpsed at in this piece, Tears for Fears. Now, the Niyam Recorder, dated the 21st of August 2024, has got the front page piece, Man Freezes to Death in Dirty Newham Flat. I have read that on record in the previous edition, but this actually is a tip of the iceberg, because the assistant or deputy or interim kind of coroner, actually called Arbin on the report, condemned the agencies, all the agencies involved in the supposed care of this individual that died aged 54. This is a man probably from Somalian background or something. The name suggests something like that. But whatever the background, the man's death was preventable, and the coroner predicted that other people would have the same fate. Now, again, in the kind of piece in the Newham Recorder, dated the 21st of August 2024, there is a long piece, long part about this care home or the carer service based in Balam Street. Now, the Balam Street is the one that they are based in, I think, is nearest to the Plasto station. The Plasto station is not far from Stratford, but this is the Balam Street based care home. This is also registered as a two care businesses, not home, sorry. And I think I know the people that are involved, because while I was in the so called, wrongly called Joy Foundation, the Newham Council Adult Social Care people contracted them to clean my room, because some of the injuries that I have on my fingers make it very difficult for me to use the fingers normally, obviously. And so, therefore, I need somebody else to do the cleaning. Now, I was there from 23rd of November 2022 until this the first week of August 2024, and in that time, Newham Council completely failed to provide the support I needed to keep the room clean, tidy, and absolutely up to standard. So all of those things will be updated on. This is just a list of things that are in the kind of basket, if you like, in basket. Now I am going to do that in later editions. This is just a second part of the day, which is ending at 9 o'clock GMT, at 10 o'clock British Standard Time on Saturday, the 24th of August 2024.